Welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show with myself, Roy Shanahan. I'm joined, as always, with Mr. David Bugle and Neil Dobbs from thebigkickoff.com. And today we're joined by former Manchester United goalkeeper and Sheffield Wednesday boss, Chris Turner. Chris, I could tell you every club that you have would take up half the show. So we'll stick with Sheffield Wednesday and Manchester United, even though you started with Sunderland. I suppose that was a good one.
No, I started with Sheffield Wednesday, went to Sunderland.
Went to Sunderland. Okay. Right, we better get that correct. You're dead right to get that in. Listen, unfortunately, bad news over the weekend with Sheffield Wednesday going down. How does that affect the club? It's a big blow.
Massive blow. It's been coming though for the last 3 or 4 years with the present owner. He's took the club right onto the edge of Premiership football 5 years ago. Lost at Wembley to Hull 1-0. Then the following season, lost in the playoff semi-final to Huddersfield, who eventually went up. But since then, it's just spiraled out of control. Each season finishing lower and lower. And then off the field problems came with a 12-point deduction at the start of the season, which was reduced to 6. And they've had 5-6 managers, two caretaker managers over this season, and consequently on Saturday, what was thought was going to come actually did happen, and they now find themselves in League One, which is going to be a tough league to get out of. You know, ridiculously, I've seen bookies making them favourites for next season, which is ridiculous because there's some good sides in that division. Charlton, Ipswich, Sunderland may still be there next year, who knows? So it's not going to be easy. And the playing squad, most of it is out of contract now. So negotiations have to be done. Darren Moore's only been the manager for 14 games. And he's missed some of those games with COVID. So it's been a very hectic end of season. And it's accumulated with relegation, which is sad.
Yeah. How does relegation affect a team, a club, I suppose? The people who are there immediately, the days after and the weeks after, like they finish their last game, do they see each other straight away afterwards, or do they go straight into a break? How does that all work?
Well, generally a team will finish on the last game of the season, and then they will meet probably one day next week, generally to do a fitness test or level, or just do final end of season, and then meet up again in July for pre-season. But as I say, a lot of players at Wednesday are out of contract, so they might not see each other again. They'll have to go and see the manager to be told what's happening with the futures. I mean, the players haven't been paid their full wages for the last 2 months of the season, I might add as well. So it's got a bad taste in everybody's mouth of what's happened at Sheffield Wednesday over the last 12 months, 18 months.
Yeah. I'll touch on Wakefield, because you formed Wakefield. How many years ago was that now?
We've just second full season. Season. Both affected by COVID, so we haven't completed the season yet. But
you haven't got the fans in yet. Do you know you have fans yet?
Well, no. Before the second lockdown, we were getting 350 fans coming to watch our games, which is, when you look down at the non-league grassroots levels, crowds are 70s, 80s, 150s is a great crowd. We've been getting 350, so we're delighted. But off the field, we've made great strides. We play at Featherstone. We've got a great deal with Featherstone Rovers, so we're playing in a 10,000 seater stadium. And we've got media links, commercial links, everything that's required backstage for the professional setup. And we are just awaiting. We're in with a chance of being promoted into semi-professional football, which is a major step forward for us, especially in 2 years. We'd like to have done it by winning the league that we were in, but there's restructuring by the FA, and there's a place for 3 more clubs to be invited into the semi-professional game. and we're in there with 6 other clubs.
So what's the vision for Wakefield? Like, obviously everyone looks to go and try and get all the way up to the Premier Division. I'm sure that's no different for you. You have to aim high, but it's league by league each year. But how quickly can you progress, do you feel? What would be a 10-year plan?
Well, it's you know, the aim of the club is to get Wakefield on the map in professional football. The city is obviously renowned for Wakefield, the Super League team, Wakefield Wildcats, and that they're known throughout the world. But football in Wakefield, there's 350,000 people live in the city or around on the touching sides of the city. There's more people play football in the city than do actually play rugby league. So there's always been people wanting a professional club. So, you know, we've started one up, and the intention is a couple of things really. One is obviously to try and get to the highest level we possibly can, and you know, Conference League North would be fantastic for us in 10 years. Obviously, if we were to get investment, which we have secured over the last number of months, with an investor from abroad, which we'll be announcing. We'd like to announce it hopefully on the back of gaining promotion into the Northeast Counties leagues. But if not, we'll be announcing it very shortly. And then the second point is, I like to get young players. You know, one of the main thing is in professional football, all the clubs that you see, you're only seeing the superstars at the top, but at the bottom of all that is young players who get released at 16, get released at 18, and the world falls apart. Agents who are their agents will trial them at all various clubs, all various levels. They don't get picked up. They lose their confidence. They fall out of love with football, and they're lost to the game. And I certainly would like to pick up a number of those players from especially around the UK, and bring them to Wakefield and work with them for 12 months, 2 years, develop them, play them in our football club, and then when the time's right for them, if they feel that, you know, if we feel that they're ready, then put them back into clubs at a certain level where we think they could succeed and have a good chance of getting back into the game. So that's another area. So if we're successful going up the leagues, that's great, obviously. But just as important for me is to find some young players who've lost their confidence, and we can pick them up and dust them down and work with them and put them back into the game at some sort of level.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting project to keep an eye out for. It's certainly one that people will be enthralled by, because they want to have a look at a new club. They like to see. I mean, they did it with Salford. I know Salford had the backing of the Manchester United boys, but everyone was fascinated by it. So, and this will be a new thing, and people will be cheering on a new club. So Wakefield are going to be very interesting.
Well, when we were allowed supporters in, we were getting supporters from Upper Scotland down. And from down Cornwall, etc., because it's a new club, a new stadium for them to visit within football, and the interest has been enormous. And just to quickly go back to the investment that we've received and going to be a partner with us, did an article in an online magazine, The Athletic, which is massive in America, and we did the interview with them, and just saying the things I've just said to you there. Mike Egerty as well, the business partner, and I just said that we'd love it to be like Salford, where we have millions of pounds. If that came about for us, then obviously you can buy your way through each of these lower leagues. Just pay the most money for the players, and you get the best players will come and play for you. Zoom out the leagues. That does help, but you know, the thing is we're starting off from the very, very bottom, and we're going to try and work our way up. And this guy was reading it in Connecticut, in New York, and he read the article. And since then, he made contact with us and has invested in our club. So, you know, it's unbelievable. So little Wakefield football club that's on its, just trying to get his foot on the ladder. We're already renowned around the world, and we've got one or possibly two players coming from Australia this summer once COVID allows, coming from Australia to come and play within our football club to be coached by our coaches.
Yeah, I think Jason says that as well. Strange, Wakefield don't have its own football team for decades, considering the size of the city. So that's a good thing that it's actually happening. We'll come back to that, and we'll come back to your career as well, because there's plenty of years in that career, and I'm sure people will want to ask a few questions. True. Neil, we go on to the Premier League. City blew a lead again against Chelsea. Aguero misses a penalty in a fashion that I think if any manager, including Chris and Pep, there'd be a few words after the match, I think. And his penalty ratio, Neil, you were highlighting that.
Yeah, so Aguero now has taken close to 48, 50 penalties, and he's missed 15, which basically means he misses one every 3, which is really, really disgraceful. When you think of the likes of, the Premier League greats, that would be over 20 odd penalties that would maybe miss one. And I mean, that would be a big, big deal. I don't really think City have a designated penalty taker. I think Gundogan ended up taking one. They've kind of gone through the mill of quite a few. De Bruyne and Mahrez, they've all had their shot. The Aguero situation, I suppose, was heightened obviously from the fact that they're winning 1-0. They can seal the league on the day, and then Aguero tries to, I guess, be a little bit smart, be a little bit cute. When it comes off, it looks fantastic, and you're lauding him. And that was the one where it didn't come off, and man, was he left with egg on his face after that.
Chris, Chris, how good would it feel to stop a penalty like that?
I'm going to be totally honest here. I've not seen it, but did he just try and
the little dink down the middle? Yeah.
Well, a quickie. Ron Atkinson, when I was manager of Sheffield Wednesday, we were playing Newcastle in a massive relegation game at St James Park, Easter Monday, and they had a Brazilian called Mirandina. He took the penalties for Newcastle, and he said, "Listen, if he takes a penalty, stand up. He'll just strike it down the middle of the goals." He says, "Don't move, stand up." So obviously, the rare that penalties, you're going to be facing. We're winning 1-0 at the stage, and they get a penalty kick. And the Wednesday fans are behind my goal. So I'm standing there I'm thinking, well, he's told me, don't move. Stand up, don't move. So I'm thinking, I've got to obey, because if I go to my left or my right, and he does down the middle, he's going to, So I thought, right there, good information, man. So I stood perfectly still, came up, and Mirandina hit this ball, and it went right in the top left-hand corner. I wouldn't have saved it with 500 arms, never mind 2. Anyhow, as I'm going to pick the ball out of the net, I've got this Wednesday fan absolutely screaming at me, "It moved! What are you doing, Turner?" So, as a goalkeeper, it's obviously. Did he know that he does that because Aguero's not been playing most of this season, and as it's been said that Neil said there, he's missed 1 in every 3. Has he tried this before and missed? I don't think so, because I don't think
so. Yeah,
he'll do it again. So it might have been just by a bit of luck that the goalkeeper might on the day yesterday must have thought, I'll stand up for this. A lot of penalties though do seem to be driven down the middle, and or just to the left and right of the centre. So just their lucky day.
Yeah, I think it probably was, because he didn't commit himself. He didn't go fully left or right. He kind of went down on one knee to the right and then just stuck his hand up. So he wasn't fully committed. So
no.
Dave, does this cement Aguero's chances now of starting in the Champions League final? You've scored in 2 games. You put a thought in the manager's mind. Now he's missed a penalty. They could have won the league. Maybe he thinks, I can't start them now. My team was winning games without him.
Yeah, to be honest, I'd say there was a bit of rotation on Saturday. They're going to try and keep it fresh now. There's only a point really in it to grab the title. So he wants to keep them nice and fresh. It's all about the Champions League. Like, we can all pretend that United are going to try and nick it off. They're not. It's all about the Champions League now. And to be honest, the tried and trusted kind of non-striker that they've been using lately without Aguero and Jesus has been working. I'd be shocked if Aguero would want to score a hat-trick in the next couple of games, really, to try and get in. I'd say it will be the Foden, Mahrez, Sterling and De Bruyne. But then again, Sterling's been in and out as well. So, and Bernardo, he'd want to do something pretty special. And obviously that penalty doesn't do himself any favours. But I don't think himself or Jesus probably will start. It's been tried and tested for the last couple of months, and it's been working quite well. So, as I say, when he does play, he's going to have to do something special to fight in. But obviously the penalty doesn't do himself any favours.
Yeah. I've got a message from Gary Gibson. I'll put that up in a minute because that's about Wakefield, Chris. But when you look at Pep Guardiola and you look at the way he plays football, are you intrigued at how he gets his teams to play football? Are you puzzled by how he gets teams to play football? Because if it was that simple, everyone would be playing that football.
Well, a lot of coaches do try and play that way and quickly find that they can't play that way. Pep's got the best players. He's got tremendous in all areas of his team, and he how do I phrase it? It's everybody said it's a proper way to play football. Manchester City are very good to watch. I think they will go with what David said because it has worked, and it's difficult to mark when you haven't got a centre forward to mark, and then suddenly you've got 2 or 3 players making runs, and you got somebody like De Bruyne on the ball that can slide a pass, make a pass, drive a pass anywhere, and drop it on the sixpence. It's fantastic, and Pep going all the way back to Barcelona in those days, they play a brand of football that is great to watch, and they play it at tempo. A lot of other teams try and play it, but they don't play it with the same tempo. They haven't got the same ability players in 11 outfield players now because the keeper plays. 11 players that can all handle the football. Like, if you get those players, then you can play that way. If you haven't got 11, if you've only got 4 to 5 or 6, then the other 2 or 3 will let you down, and so on and so on. So, but he's a great coach. It's going to be a great final, and I think that result yesterday just shows that Chelsea can beat them.
Yeah. There's your question. Gary asks, can Yorkshire support Leeds, Wednesday, United, Barnsley, Hull, Rotherham, York, and now Wakefield? Can they all survive with dwindling amount of money and fans?
He's a Leeds fan, Chris, now, by the way. I'm just letting you know.
Well, I mean, our prices are not the same price as all those. And in fact, Sheffield Wednesday, I think, charged the supporters the most of all those clubs to go and watch them play football. That's another bad thing that's happened over the last 4 to 5 years, that they're going back to Sheffield Wednesday. But we price it once where we're playing next season, £5 or £6 to come in to watch a game of football, and we're actually playing Brighouse in a cup game in 2 or 3 weeks' time when crowds are allowed back at our level. And we've already sold 400 tickets for that game, which is amazing for a startup like ourselves.
That's brilliant. Okay, and sure, listen, there's always the new
Gary,
kids that are coming up, isn't there?
If you want to come, I'll give you a free ticket to the first game that you come.
There you go. There you go. You can't go wrong with that. So, who wants to be watching Leeds? Okay, West Ham against Everton today. I get yours at this, Chris. You may not have seen the game, but Everton beat West Ham 1-0. There wasn't really too much in the game. This is probably West Ham's chance gone now of a top 4 spot. And it just shows you that teams like that can't afford to have a Declan Rice missing. They need all their top players.
Well, we've just been discussing there. Manchester City have a squad of players. When one drops out, they've got players to drop into those areas of extreme quality, where other teams, and you name West Ham today, if they lose Antonio up front, Declan Rice in midfield or at the back, the quality players, if they miss those players, then it takes a huge amount out of the team. I mean, it's been an amazing season for David Moyes and West Ham. I mean, if you look at it, they lost the first 3 games, and they lost the first home game 3-0. I think it was 3-0. If there would have been fans in the stadium, you know what would have been kicking off at West Ham. But he got over that tough start, and they've had a great season, and now they're all championing him as the manager of the season and everything else in European football. But that result probably has, seen it slip away with the result. I think they lost the last game as well away from home. And Everton, another team that's threatened to get into the top 4, but can't get in there.
Yeah. Neil, Liverpool, they get past Southampton. Again, Salah looked like he was snapping at everything, but in fairness to him, that's the way he does it. He's more likable or likely to shoot than pass compared to the other lads. So you can't blame him on that. But he wasn't on form yesterday. What about Liverpool? Are they going to secure this top 4? Are you confident of them securing this top 4? Because Chelsea just look like they're hitting that form now, and even with Leicester losing and the tough games that they have, Liverpool still have to win their games.
Yeah, I mean, look, on paper, if you take the Man United game away, which will be most likely easier going because of the fixture congestion that United have, Liverpool on paper have a decent run in, like against 3 teams that you would fancy them to be on a normal year. I don't know, I watched the whole game yesterday, and I know it was 2-0. How Liverpool kept a clean sheet yesterday was a miracle, and the goalkeeper was the man of the match. He took off, 5 or 6 1v1 saves, really, really top drawer, kept them in the game, and they come away with a 2-0 win. Now, you watch Liverpool against Villa, you watch Liverpool against Newcastle, and they just don't look convincing. And every single time someone goes long, someone goes diagonal, they're giving up these chances. I put it like this: if them chances had fell to the likes of Cavani or Rashford or Greenwood, absolutely back of the net, Liverpool are getting beaten 3-0. Just Southampton were gamey, they were up for it. Watching the game, I never at any stage felt comfortable watching it. Even at 1-0, you were kind of saying Groundhog Day here. It's going to be Newcastle. They're going to give something away. And I mean, they really did their best to give something away. And the relief when Thiago scored that goal was unbelievable. So looking forward 4 more games, if they somehow managed to get a win against Man United, and I mean, it's not the greatest ground for Liverpool to go away and play, traditionally, you're just still waiting for them to slip up against one of the other teams. So I wouldn't be confident, I don't think. I think you're literally relying on Leicester to capitulate rather than Liverpool to outplay anybody else. No way. I don't think they form, and they've got a chance, there's no doubt, but I wouldn't be hopeful about it.
Dave, top 4, who would you cement in for those spots? Obviously, United sealed it today, so that's 2 Manchester clubs. Leicester, can you see them bottling it?
Well, I'm a Liverpool fan as well, Chris, so there's a little bit of hope in me to say, yeah, they can. They've done it before, but to be honest, I'd have to agree with Neil. It's not necessarily whether I think Leicester are bottle it. I just can't see Liverpool winning 4 in a row, because I think they have to win all 4, and that's why I would kind of go with the current 4 that's there. Unfortunately, because I just can't see whatever about Leicester. I know they've United, Spurs, and Chelsea in their 3 fixtures, and obviously the FA Cup next week. So United's on Tuesday, and then the FA Cup finals on Saturday. So both teams will be resting players, because obviously United have a game on Thursday. It could be a very strange game. You wouldn't know what way it's going to go. But can you trust Liverpool to win 4 in a row? Personally, at the moment, no. So that's why for me, unfortunately, I think it's going to be that 4. Yeah, obviously Chelsea and Leicester to go with them.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone sending in comments. There's a few comments there that I'll put towards Chris towards the end of the show. Chris, Manchester United versus Liverpool. What makes that so special? How many times did you get to play against Liverpool?
Twice, both at both at Anfield, actually. A 3-3 draw when we were 3-1 down, and a 1-1 draw. So I never lost at Anfield playing for Manchester United. It's just the two enormous giants of English football, and when the games are played with crowds, it's a cauldron of atmosphere to play in, and it's the players down the years that have played in them fixtures, just absolutely enormous giant of players, and the passion between the two clubs. To be fair, and I'm not going to be knocking Manchester City here, but because City over the years have been down in the third division as it was, and playing a number of years outside the top league, Liverpool became obviously in the 80s the team of the 80s. So Manchester United fans saw that as the biggest game for a long time, until obviously of late when now where City are. So it was deemed as a big derby game when Manchester United played Liverpool.
Yeah. Okay, Dean here. Dean goes with you, Dave. He says he's not convinced Liverpool can win all four and that Leicester will just stumble across the line. He's probably right. I probably think so too. You might have made a valid case there for that. Neil, relegation, it seems to be done and dusted, doesn't it? Because Fulham, who gave themselves a lot of hope coming around the Christmas period and played really well, just drifted away, and there has been no fight in the relegation battle at all.
Yeah, we kind of said this maybe 6 weeks back, 5 weeks back. We were saying that Fulham needed to put pressure on the Newcastles, the Brightons, and the Burnleys. Fulham and West Brom, in fairness, and West Brom gave themselves a little bit of a lifeline there a couple of weeks ago as well with the odd win, but none of them really put that kind of pressure. Like Newcastle should have been going into the game last weekend against Leicester, absolutely dying for a point, like a point for survival, where I think they actually looked relaxed on the field, and that probably showed in the scoreline that they got. Fulham just don't seem to be capable of scoring back-to-back games. They really struggle up front. They had a little kind of a purple patch there a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately, I think it's pretty much done and dusted already. Barring some sort of a freak 3 wins in a row, which they haven't managed for 30-odd games. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty much done and dusted deal.
Yeah, and that was cemented with Newcastle, Dave. Just a crazy result to see them put 4 past Leicester on Friday night. Steve Bruce has to be given pat on the back, because he has been under so much pressure, such a big club, so much pressure from the fans at that club, not really wanting him in there. Everyone's still talking about Rafa Benitez and can we get him back? And he's done really well, hasn't he?
Yeah, like at the start of the season, they had a very strong start as well. But like everyone else, they had all their players. And for 2 months there, they were missing Sam Maximan and Callum Wilson. And now they're back, and all of a sudden they're winning games again. It's exactly what Chris said. When you're missing somebody like Antonio and Declan Rice, now they're back and they look a very dangerous side all of a sudden again, because not only have they got goals back, but they've also got injections of pace. So the players he's brought in over the last 18 months, you have to give him credit, with considering how it's run up there with Newcastle, where it's a little bit tighter and they don't splash the cash as other clubs around them do. So I know the fans are quite impatient out in there, and they'd love to be up there with the big boys like they did in the 90s. But in fairness to him, you have to tip your cap to him, because he's done a great job. But the strongest side is back, and all of a sudden, I'm not saying that they should be up there with Leicester, but Leicester probably one eye on next week, thinking foot off the gas a little bit, and they just got such a good start. So credit where credit's due. Full team back, and they're probably a lot further up the table than they should. Or they should be a little bit further up the table than what they are.
Yeah. We've coming from Nathan. Chris, what do you make of the protest by United fans ahead of last week's fixture? It'd probably be more around. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't. Former Manchester United man, what do you make of it?
Well, I think everybody's got the right to protest. I know there's been a lot of for 20-odd years now against the Glazers and what they've done, and where they put the debt onto Manchester United, etc., and take monies out and all sorts of things. I'm 100% behind people wanting to protest, but obviously it's got to be done in a fashion that's not going to injure police officers, cause violence, etc. By all means, shout, banners, everything you want, because last week it went from a protest to then suddenly being major news on the news bulletins regarding violence and and all sorts of stuff, and nobody wants to see that. I think the protests, I think it's something that the club has got to get a grip of, regarding their communication with the supporters, and it's not. I don't think it's going to be quieting down for quite a while. I think this will be something that's going to be prolonged going into next season. I really do.
Yeah, I think the FC United of Manchester have benefited from them because their season tickets are being snapped up left, right, and centre now because of it. So it is something that's very, very interesting, and I'm hoping to get them onto the show because I actually want to see how far the FC of Manchester want to go. Is it actually, do they want Manchester United to crumble and they would be a bit like Milton Keynes and Wimbledon? Is that the kind of way they want it to go, to break away? It'd be interesting.
When I was at Chesterfield, we played FC United in the FA Cup. It's like going back to the 70s. They sing all the songs from the 70s. They have the banners up. I mean, unbelievable atmosphere.
Yeah.
And they've done magnificent to set up a club off the back of revolting against the Glaziers, and they've set their own club up and they've done extremely well. And good luck to them and everything. But it's all around greed and all about money at the top end of the Premier League, which all kicked off and thankfully failed two weeks ago. But I still believe that's going to rumble on the ESL League and other things. They're talking about regulations. I don't want to go too deep into it. An outside independent regulator. The clubs are not going to want that. The people who own the clubs aren't going to want that, to be told they've got to give certain money to other things and all sorts. It's all about money. It's all about making money. These people invest, some of them invest into clubs, and they want to run it how they want to run it.
But has it not always been like that, Chris? Has chairman, you look back at Brian Clough and the managers they had at Leeds and stuff, they'd always pocket the few quid, the extra cash or whatever, and it was never being given out. So has it just got to a point now where they're giving so much to players that they can't actually, that they're not getting enough money for themselves then, so they need to get more money?
There's enough money being brought into the Premier League for those Premier League clubs to make money, do all the grounds and all that they've done. The problem is the players and the agents are taking all the money, and they're paying them, £500,000 a week. Come on, I mean, it's just absolutely obscene sort of money. And the guy who's on the terrace in the stand, he's looking at all this and everything else. And I think a lot of people say enough's enough. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Paul Popper will re-sign a contract at Man United, £500,000 a week. Of course he will. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? I mean, I've got it at my club, Sheffield Wednesday captain. He's 32, midfield Barry Bannon. He's just signed a 2-year deal, and the fans are saying he's loyal and he's fantastic. He's a loyal man. He's obviously getting paid what he's going to get paid, and players will go where the money is. And unfortunately, the top clubs are paying too much money out to the players, to the agents, and that's why they need even more money. And it's obscene. It's obscene.
What about Gary's point? This wage cap.
Well,
what would you think of a wage cap? Is that, would they even go with that?
Well, players. Well, I don't know. I mean, if somebody said £100,000 a week at a time. It's I don't know. It's like in the olden days, it was £100 a week, wasn't it? Now we're talking about £100,000 a week. Well, to be honest, if a footballer or anybody can't live on £100,000 a week, there's something wrong with them, isn't there? But clubs have got to make a stance. They've got to make.
And with Chris, would that be one of the big attractions for the likes of Wakefield AFC now, where people are harking back to, as you said, FC United of the 70s, kind of fiver in and a couple of quid for a pie and a pint kind of thing, and a 20 quid day out with the lads for a few hours before you head at home? Is that the big attraction now for that kind of lower league, is kind of coming back to life again off the back of this?
I think so. I think so. Well, put it this way: if you want to go along and watch football and enjoy football how it used to be played, and the passion and the commitment and a nice, a good afternoon out, go to grassroots football, go to non-league football. There's some great games, some great teams and clubs around. One of the things that amazed me was in our first season as a club in the Sheffield County Senior Premier League, some great little clubs, a lot of all volunteer ran, but the commitment and everything else to running that little club, our clubs, is marvelous. And as you're going up the leagues and it gets more and more professional up through the leagues, a lot of good clubs, a lot of good entertainment, and so when you're sitting in your seat and you're paying 40, 50, 60, 70 pound a game, there's a good game that's just playing 10 miles away, and it's only going to cost you 20 quid for a good day out. And I think hopefully non-league football can get some help from that.
Okay, we'll go with Eric because Eric has a point here. He says, "Hey lads, where do you see Arsenal going forward with Arteta? Will they stick with him?" Dave, I'll ask you this one.
I knew you'd ask me.
I like Arsenal, Dave. No, because when there was a meme out during the week with it was a kind of a Guardiola doing his homework and Arteta looking over his shoulder, trying to see how to play the false nine. He played against Villarreal with a false nine. Does he have a future at Arsenal? Is he trying to be too much like Guardiola? And should he just be himself and bring out his own kind of style of football and use the players that he has there, because he has centre forwards there? Play with your centre forwards.
Yeah, you have to play to your strengths, and like, don't get me wrong, you do take your little bits of nuggets from different managers, but you have to put your own little spin on it. And Chris said it earlier on, as good as Guardiola is, it only works with the very, very best of players, because he has them kind of multitasking, like fullbacks are dropping into centre midfield, and he has guys who have that kind of football IQ. Like, I'm no disrespect, Arteta doesn't have that, so he can't try and be Man City without Man City players or style of players. And as you said there, he's 3 or 4 good strikers and 1 or 2 up and coming, and then he's not using them. And there was a lot of frustration with the fans on Thursday night with the lack of kind of adventure going forward. It was far too patient. Even in the last minute, it was very much sideways and backwards. And it's like, where's the ball into the box, So will they pay out on another manager again? I don't know. Will they, like, with everything that's going on at the minute, you never know. He might get another go, but is there faith in him? Certainly not with the fans, that's for sure.
Now, Chris, I was watching the Arsenal Villarreal game. I was watching the Manchester United game. It was a dead duck, so switched over to Arsenal and Villarreal. The last 4 minutes, Arsenal passed the ball around and not a cross came in. They got a throw in with a minute to go in injury time. Passed it around about 10 times. I'm not an Arsenal supporter, and I'm shouting at the screen, "Lob it! Just get it in there. You don't know what's going to happen. It'll fall to someone." Why do teams do that? What's that about? I don't get that.
I've got to be honest. I have no idea, because I don't even like watching that sort of football. Doesn't excite me. Passing the ball all around the pitch and no shot. Fans want to see shots. They want to see goals. They want to see saves. They want to see missed chances. They want to see passion, and they want to see the teams having a go. And I can't understand why. It's always been known that most goals are scored with 3 passes or less. Most goals. You get goals from 20 passes very rarely. Might be Manchester City, somebody like that, who might get a higher ratio of it. But
now you say that, Chris, I'm going to interrupt you there. Ederson at the weekend pings a ball, or during the week, pings a ball, 1 pass, slotted it across, and City win the game. So they have changed their game a little bit.
Liverpool, look at Liverpool. When the big man, the big centre half's on, he sent balls for the 3 strikers up front to get in behind or whatever. And they were champions last year. But for me, when I go and watch a game of football, I want to see action down the end where we're going to score goals as much as possible. And I'm sure every football supporter is like that. Passing the ball around the pitch. I mean, I'm trying to think of the game I watched. I watched Derby County versus Watford early on this season. And they were losing 1-0. And then when the 5 minutes went up to extra time, they suddenly started launching the ball up the field. And in them 5 minutes, they created 3 chances. Didn't score, but they created 3 chances more than what they've been doing for 85 minutes in the rest of the game. And I think to myself, why don't you mix it up? Why don't you play positive football that people want to play and want to see? And it's all about goals. And on you're saying about Arsenal, how much are they paying for them strikers up the front to score goals and win them trophies and that? And they're not even on the pitch, some of them.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. We go on to Southampton because this is actually a question. I'm glad Dean sent this in. Neil, I'll let you have this one. Even though Southampton are safe mathematically, they'll probably stay up. More than likely, it's nearly a done deal. What sort of job do you think Hasenhüttl has done this season? Is his job safe? Because I remember back in November, I think, when they went top of the league for a couple of days, he was getting praised left, right and centre for how brilliant he was. After the 9-0 defeat against Leicester, he's turned them around. He's got them back. He's one of the managers that could get I think at the time Mourinho was under pressure and they were saying he'd be great for the Spurs job. And you had all that sort of thing. Then United beat them 9-0. Everyone gave him that because they were doing so well. But since then, the record hasn't been great. Now, I'm not saying he's not a good manager. I'm not saying he's not even doing a good job. But you're looking for progression as a manager. So would you see him as safe in that job, or where would you see him?
Well, first and foremost, if you go back to the first 9-0 loss against Leicester, the one thing I would say about Ralph Hasenhüttl is that for him to come back mentally from that with that group of players was huge, absolutely huge. In fact, I can't remember a manager getting a hiding like that and then coming back in any way, shape or form and winning back the fans. That was a massive, massive mountain, a massive obstacle to overdo. Then, obviously, they went on a pretty decent run to start it this year. Everyone was giving them all the plaudits, and they really ran into the ground. Not necessarily against United. I remember watching them against Spurs, and Spurs just found them out. They had their number. They allowed Southampton press them high, and one direct ball over the top or one ball into Harry Kane bypassed 5 or 6 of their players. The next ball from Harry Kane to Heung-min Son put him in and goal 5 or 6 times, and it happened again and again and again. And that was the first time this year I kind of took notice that they're very, very susceptible to that type of play. A couple of teams found him out. Leicester found him out, and then obviously they ran into United, and United gave them a real thumping. So the one thing I say about Hasenhüttl is the type of team the Southampton are, the position that you expect them to be in the league. I think he's done pretty okay. I think he's brought in an attack-minded team. I think they've goals in them. Set piece delivery is absolutely brilliant. And they're probably an exciting enough team to watch if you get to watch them live. It's just a question of resources. Like Southampton don't exactly hold on to their best players traditionally. So it's maybe hard for him to think a year or two down the line. I think they need a bit midfield bolstering because they rely very heavily on Ward-Prowse, and even Armstrong plays in there. So with one or two decent signings around the middle, I think he can bring them, that kind of 7th, 8th, 9th place, which is kind of where they should be. So is he safe? I think he is. I think he's got through the season. I think they had a very high point. They've had some low points. But even the win against Liverpool, when you look at them, they played away, how much that meant to him that night. And he had Southampton flying at Liverpool left and right. You got to give him a bit of credit for the way he takes the teams, even the top 6 teams. So from that reason, I think he will be okay. And he maybe just needs a little bit more time to see can he progress them that extra step now for next year.
Yeah. Can I give you one little fun fact there, Roy? When Neil said about it, managers recovering from 9-0. 31 years ago, Fecker, Steve Coppell, we hammered them 9-0 at the start of the season, and then they went and bet us 4-3 in the FA Cup semi-final. And we all know who they played in the FA Cup final that year, and we all know what happened to that club for 20 years afterwards. So it's all Steve Coppell's fault.
There you go. Still a rare event.
I know. Oh no, exactly.
I'm gonna go because there's a few questions for Chris. So I'm just gonna pop one up there, Chris. Here's one now. It's actually my brother. Well done, Owen. Do you think Sheffield Wednesday should have sacked Tony Pulis after 10 games, and has it cost them their championship place? It was a fairly good question, Chris. What do you make of that?
It's a very difficult one to answer because Tony Pulis was coming into the January transfer window, and I think Tony had plans to bring certain players in, which the chairman didn't want to do because I don't think he could afford to bring any more players in. I think he should have been more honest with Tony when he brought him to the club and told him, look, there'll be no players coming in the transfer window. The record under Tony was poor, but I had confidence in Tony. I thought that when Tony came in, he would be able to bring players in January, use his contacts, use his knowledge, and bring in 5 or 6 players that would have kept Sheffield Wednesday up. That was my opinion. Even with that record, the club have nearly stayed in. If they've had a couple of wins, they would have stayed in. So there was plenty of time even after that. But I think the chairman or the owner and Tony fell out. And there's only one thing happens when you fall out with the owner. But all the managers, Gary Monk, who was left, that was the first manager at the start of the season. To be fair to Gary, just beaten Bournemouth, who were top of the league, then 1-0 at home, and he had a 0-0 draw at home with Millwall, and he got the sack. Now, Gary was picking up a little bit of momentum to get us into halfway. I understand that Gary had said that we will finish halfway, but the chairman or the owner, when the 6 points was given back, had said that we can get in the playoffs, and there was a disagreement, and Gary was then told he had to leave.
Okay,
it's a very hard.
So Gary was proved right. Gary was proved right. He should have taken the mid-table.
Well, you know, I mean, the squad and the team, as I've said, all the managers, right down to Darren Moore, who's had or his coaching staff, and Darren, 14 games, only got 2 wins. So the players were not good enough for the championship. Yeah. And 5 managers or 5 coaches have taken them over, and none of them could get them to win consistently enough. It's just been a disastrous season.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about a new season, Chris, is that you start again and level pegging with everyone else. So it's fresh start. So hopefully
we're already on an embargo, so there might be another points deduction next year.
Oh, Jesus. Hey, you shouldn't have told me that. Okay. A few more questions come in, and again, I'll definitely send them on to Chris before we finish up. Dave, Jose Mourinho's landed the Roma job. We did, and Neil wants me to say this because he mentioned it the week before, and he's been bleating on about it all week. He said Italy is the likely destination, and it has been the destination he's chosen. Roma and Italy, probably the style of football probably suits him out there. Slower pace, low blocks, all that sort of stuff. How do you think he'll do with Roma? I suppose it really comes around to, can they back him? Because the last 2 clubs haven't backed him in the way that Mourinho would like to be backed.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I think you have it there. I think a lot of people would be in agreement, though. He still seems to stick to what he knows best for the last 10 or 15 years. So I'd say it would suit Italy more than anywhere else. But you've hit the nail. It's all about what they have in the locker, like in the coffers to back them up. They have a half decent side there. Obviously, Dzeko's a bit aging. He might want to move on, or he might want to move him on and freshen things up. Obviously, you have to look at the squad and go, which players are you going to pick on? Because he always picks on one player, so who's going to get it this time? But look, yeah, exactly. But there's 1 or 2 there. He forgot about Chris Smalling already. They were going through the defenders, and he forgot Chris Smalling was one of his United defenders, and he's already kind of put his foot in it there with him. But yeah, Mourinho will do a good job if they back him. But like Italian football, obviously they're not one of the superpowers. Really, if he got in Champions League football, I think that'd be a good one for him next year. That I wouldn't be getting too excited over upending the likes of the 2 Milans and Juventus just yet.
Neil, Spurs let go Jose Mourinho. They brought him in to win a trophy. The week before he had a chance to win a trophy, they let him go. Now they're on a little bit of a slump. They haven't really improved. And what was the point of it all? You've got to ask, haven't you?
You do, yeah. There's a couple of strange decisions there. So they bring in Mourinho. They want to end their drought. And it's not just important for Mourinho to win a trophy. It's important for Spurs to win a trophy. You're still constantly going to get asked every single week that we go on, when is Harry Kane going to leave to win a trophy? You know, if Spurs had nailed that down, kept Mourinho there, kept them ticking over, greater aspirations for next year, add to the squad, all that good stuff, you know, that could have sent them on a different trajectory. And now they run the risk of losing Kane, and I think it's a serious reality now that they might lose Kane. They installed the young lad into managerial position, Ryan Mason, who's 29 years old. That was the second crazy decision. The third one, obviously, was the fact that it was a week before the cup final. So I think Spurs have really, really shot themselves in the foot. I don't know. There's rumours it was a money decision. They would have had to pay off X, Y, or Z. I don't buy that. I think it was a massive, massive error on Daniel Levy's part. And they're reaping what they sow now, because this could have a knock-on effect that will affect Spurs for years to come now. And then, obviously, the whole Gareth Bale thing last week, where Gareth Bale was world class again because he did brilliant against Sheffield United, and he was exposed so badly yesterday against Leeds. So it just shows Mourinho goes out, a new manager comes in with fresh ideas, you know, good aspirations. Now, obviously, Ryan Mason played Bale from the start because he wants to get something out of him, maybe something that he thought Jose didn't or couldn't. And again, it's just backfired again because Spurs were badly beaten in that game.
Yeah, it's a pity, because I mean that they seem to be going in the right direction, and all of a sudden now, again, not that there's penny pinching, because I mean they've a fabulous stadium there, and it was a bit like Arsenal at the time, where Wenger was basically keeping the whole club going, and you only see that now with Arsene Wenger, Neil, that he actually kept that club going really, really well. Since the other managers have come in, they've struggled badly, haven't they?
But like, you look at Arsene Wenger and the job he did, it turned into a kind of a viral that, you know, Arsene Wenger kept him in the Champions League for X amount of consecutive seasons. That was their golden era when you look back now, because Arsenal are in no man's land in comparison to what they were. They were in an absolute dead cert for a Champions League spot. And if you look back over the last 5 years, that is no mean feat. And for him to do it on the budget that he did in the background while building the stadium, building the infrastructure, and building that club up from the ground, absolutely phenomenal job that Wenger did. So it just shows, you know, sometimes be careful what you wish for in your aspirations, because it can come back to slap you in the face.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Champions League, Chris. Chelsea played City obviously yesterday. What did you ever play in games where you would play a team 1 week and 3 or 4 days play them again? Does that change how you play the second game, or does it have any effect whatsoever?
No, not really. I mean, we played, when I was at Sunderland, we played Norwich City away at Norwich Carroll Road on the Saturday. We beat them 3-1. And then a week on the Sunday, we played them in the League Cup final, and we lost 1-0. I think every game's different. I think you may learn, you may pick something up from the game, but you know, the Champions League final, hopefully it's going to be played in the UK, will be, I think it'll be a good game, and I think it'll be two sides that playing attacking football, because I don't think Tuchel will play any different. I think he'll attack, and so will obviously Pep Guardiola. So it should be a good Champions League final.
Yeah, I think so too, because he's had the upper hand in the last couple of games. I can't see him changing too much. Neil, it's obviously an all-English final. Do you feel the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, obviously the Super League, they're looking to try and get their money in? Are we seeing a little bit of a crumbling of La Liga now with the finances? Because Barcelona over the last few years haven't been able to get the players in. It's a little bit like the Italian league from the 90s, where the money was rolling in it and then they kind of slumped. It's looking that way now because the Premier League has such a fantastic TV deal, and the Spanish league hasn't. And as much as the government were helping out Real Madrid and and Barcelona were getting, they could afford not to have a sponsor on their jersey. Those times are gone.
Yeah, you look at money has definitely changed Spain for the worse, as in the shift of power from Spain to the Premier League is absolutely massive. And the other side of things that's changed is the size of the fees. So gone are the days where you could pick up, Real Madrid and Barcelona used to kind of pick on the England teams and pick up a 40 million euro player, their star player, 40 or 50. And now that's become 100 million, 120 million, 140 million. So if you look at Hazard as a prime example, Real Madrid spent 120 million on him, and the guy, they can't get a tune out of him at the moment. So there's only so many times you can go to the well and buy in that type of player. It's definitely shown in the last few years. Barcelona fallen off a cliff. Madrid are hanging in there, although I think Chelsea probably showed what people were expecting in the Liverpool game, but it didn't happen, was that Real Madrid are beginning to falter now. They need to start replacing your Kroos and your Modric. They're overly reliant on Benzema. So the power shift is huge, and the only way that they're going to overcome that now is either A, bring in through new talent, which they would introduce their own talent, or B, buy their way out of trouble, which they've done traditionally. And if you see the desperation in Perez, the president, it probably shows that there's no more 100 million, 120 million kitties unless you start some sort of new venture, which was the Super League. So I don't really see a short-term way back for them, but the power has definitely shifted, and it doesn't look like it's going to change from that for a number of years based on the Premier Leagues, the strength of the money in the deal that they have.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, this one popped up. I like this one. Chris, you played with two great Irish Manchester United players, Frank Staple and Paul McGrath. How are they as players, personalities in the dressing room?
Well, I mean, two great players at each end of the field. I mean, Frank was a tremendous target man, centre forward, great professional. Paul, one of the best players who didn't have to work too hard to be a great player. He had different gears in his pace, personality-wise. I mean, Paul's a lovely lad, and Frank was more of a. When I knew Frank was more of a senior professional, quiet. Paul was the opposite. Paul, when he got with Norman, there was some fireworks when them boys are on the juice. But I mean, both tremendous players and had great careers. And they were, a delight for me to be in the same dressing room as them.
You mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned that, because at the time you were there from the transition from Ron Atkinson to Alex Ferguson. So you would have seen probably a few changes within that time. When you looked at Paul McGrath and Norman Whiteside, Brian Robson, there was a few of them there that would go out and have a drink, and that culture was there. Was that cut immediately by Alex Ferguson? We all know that the likes of McGrath and all were sold on, but was it immediately something that you could see that he was looking to stamp out, or was that gradual?
I think it was gradual, but I think at that time, clubs, Liverpool, Arsenal, you've read all the players' books around that era. That's how football was in those days. And Sir Alex had come from Aberdeen, where he'd broken the Rangers Celtic strength, and he'd won a European trophy. He had young lads, young players, your Strackens, your McGee's, Neil Cooper's, this world. Jim Lake was there then. All young lads, all looked up to the manager. He ruled them with an iron fist, and he then came to Old Trafford, and he came into the culture that was down in English football. And the Man United players were no different to the Liverpool and Arsenal players. And I think it opened his eyes, and I think over a gradual period of time, he moved the players on. He felt that he had to at the time, but he weakened the team for a number of years. He didn't get the right blend with the incoming players, and he kept swapping and changing and bringing players in, and it wasn't until the boys came through the academy, we all know who they were, who they are, and then once they got going, and 2 or 3 like Roy Keane and them boys were brought into the club, then we all know the rest is history. But it was certainly at times an exciting time to be at the club.
Yeah, we're gonna leave it 5 minutes to go. So, Chris, I'm just gonna bang a couple of questions out to you here. Right. Is your greatest achievement in football win the League Cup in '91 with Sheffield Wednesday?
Well, it's got to be, really, because everybody's boyhood dream is to play at Wembley, and I played 5 years before with Sunderland and lost to Norwich. Went to Sheffield Wednesday, won it against Manchester United, but it's my club that I support. So it's from growing up at 4 years of age, watching Sheffield Wednesday play, to then supporting them, going and watching them home and away, then playing for them, and then going away and playing at Sunderland, at Man United, then going back to Sheffield Wednesday and playing in a top cup final in the country and winning it. It's got to be the biggest achievement, yes.
Who was the best personality? This is my question. Who was the best personality that you had in a dressing room? Who was someone that could change a dressing room's atmosphere from down to, perk it up with just walking into a dressing room?
Carlton Palmer, when he was at Sheffield Wednesday, was a lively character. Never thought that the team would get beat. The lads, Carlton was a bit of a, the lads took the mickey out of Carlton a lot. He gave it back just as much as what he was given. But when he went out on the field to play, he covered every blade of grass. And we always used to say that his second touch was a tackle, but he's a great lad, and he's actually taken over as manager at, I think, Grantham, somebody like Grantham, next season. He's coming back from being out in China, Shanghai, and he's now coming back. But Carlton is a lively character, Gordon Strachan was another. Gordon in the dressing room, very funny, very jovial guy, always trying to.
It's funny now. Sorry, Chris. It's funny you say that, because when he comes across on press conferences, he always seems a little bit, and maybe that's just the job, the pressures of the job, but he always seems a little bit ratty or touchy about everything. And I've heard that before, that he actually is a nice, funny, happy-go-lucky bloke.
When he was a player, he was very funny in the dressing room. Always funny. Yeah. Very good.
Old age gets to us all. It does. It makes us that little bit narky. I have one here from Owen again. He's a Celtic fan, and he'd like to know about the opinion of incoming signing Sheffield Wednesday Liam Shaw.
Well, he's a young player. He's only just broke into the team this season. Very disappointed to see him leave. A mistake by Sheffield Wednesday to not have given him a contract, or give him the contract that he was looking for. We should have kept him. He would have, believe he would have signed for us. But he's joining a great club. It's a great opportunity for him. He's strong. He's a little bit. He likes to tackle. So obviously, it's a bit more physical, I think, up in the Scottish Premier League. He can handle himself, and I do hope that he goes on to be a really top player. And I think going to Celtic it'll be a great opportunity for him. So I'm hoping that they enjoy him, and I hope he does well up there.
Yeah. Dave, you want a question?
Yeah, I can't not ask, considering where we're from here in Ireland, and obviously with everything that happened, unfortunately, last year. But if I'm right in saying you crossed paths in the early career with our own Big Jack, would I be right in saying that? And if so, what was it like working under him?
I played for Jack in 1977-78. He came to Sheffield Wednesday, and he revived. Len Ashurst, to be fair, who was the manager before him, did a lot of hard work at the club and cleared a lot of older players out. He gave me my debut at Sheffield Wednesday. So, but then Jack came, So then he took the club on to another level, and then when he left, it went over to Howard Wilkinson, and he took the club back up to the top. But Jack was totally different to any other manager that I've worked under, and I've with the two at Manchester United, Howard Wilkinson, all these people are totally different. He was just the players loved him. The players loved him, and they loved playing for him. And he did great for Sheffield Wednesday. And all he did, he told it how he saw it. But I always remember when we were practicing free kicks on Middlewood Road Day. It was absolutely pouring it down with rain, and Jeff Johnson was trying to bend the ball around the wall, and he just kept hitting the wall or going over the top. And Jack was on the sideline because Ian St. John or Morris Setters were taking the session, and Jack was stood on the touchline with an umbrella, rain jacket on, and a pair of wellies, and he strolled across to the free kick situation and said, "Jeff, you've just got to get it round the wall and in that top corner. That's all they're asking to you. Move out of the way." He walked up, toe punted it with his welly right in the top corner. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It just fell about nothing.
I'd say he turned around with a smirk on his face. Jesus, that went well.
Yeah. So, but it was a great guy, and I think he did a lot for the game of football, obviously in Ireland, and all the clubs at Middlesbrough. I mean, they had a fantastic team up at Middlesbrough. Newcastle, when he went there, I didn't think he stayed there too long, but he great footballing man. Great footballing man.
Which manager had the most influence on you as a player, and on you going into management yourself?
Like was said earlier, I think you get bits from everybody, but I was fortunate to play for Ron Atkinson twice at Sheffield and at Manchester, and he was a good players manager. He was not I wouldn't say a master stroke of a tactician, but he knew how to recruit players and bring the players to play the football he wanted. And I know it's easy to say just go out there and play. It was a bit more than that, but he just brought players into the club that played in that position, and he just told them what he wanted them to do. But the players, he was a good players manager. Ron Howard Wilkinson was very technical, very everything was done on the training ground to a T, and so you take a bit of Ron, a bit of Howard, Fergie's passion and everything else, and you've got a great manager.
Yeah. Jason wanted to know, Chris, could Pep do it in Stoke on a rainy Tuesday evening? How much is it with players? I suppose you kind of said that earlier on, that the players that he has dictate the quality of his strategy, doesn't it?
I think that it's always been the case. I mean, we talked about Jose Mourinho earlier, the special one. Could it be the special one for the team at Grimsby or somewhere like that? You'd like to see it, but it's never going to happen. I think the players, the Manchester City players, would do it on a Tuesday night on a rain, because that's one of the coldest grounds I ever been to at Stoke on a Tuesday night. But the top players can. The pitches now favour all good footballers anyhow, because they're like snooker tables, aren't they now? There's none of that mud heap and the baseball ground. You couldn't play Pep's football on baseball ground, could you?
I have a question for you. At the moment, Henderson and De Gea are fighting it out for the number one spot at Manchester United. Obviously, both great goalkeepers, really, really good goalkeepers. De Gea doesn't have to prove himself. Henderson is probably doing everything to prove himself, and he's doing a good job at it. What would you do if you were Manchester United manager there?
Me personally, I saw Henderson play quite a lot at Sheffield United. And Manchester United had a decision to make, because the player himself wanted to play first team football. They've now given him the opportunity. I personally would go with Henderson going forward, and that's not to take nothing away from David De Gea. I think he's been absolutely outstanding, and he had 2 or 3 really top class years back to back. But I think for the longer term going forward, I think that Dean Henderson has a good future ahead of him.
Yeah, I think so too. Last question. Nathan's telling us the last question. All right, we better go with Nathan. So, another former club, Sunderland, have a popular documentary out on Netflix. As an ex-player, does Chris like these projects, or do you think these should be left away from public eyes? Good question.
Well, I must say, I was gripped by that Netflix.
Yeah, we all were.
And I thought it was well executed, and I thought it came across extremely well. I don't think it embarrassed anybody. I think it showed you the pressure that owners are under from fans to spend money on players. Just that one more player to get us into the championship, and this, they spent more. I mean, Wigan must have been on the other end of the phone, absolutely laughing and delighted when they kept saying, "Well, no, we want 2.5 million now. Okay, we'll pay. Well, 3 million and a bit more for this and bit. Okay, we'll do that. But it's the pressure that owners get put under by supporters to be successful, to spend money to bring players in, and I thought it was great. Some of the shows that you've seen on telly have embarrassed a lot of people and really shouldn't be out there, but they're entertaining because people don't realise what goes off in football clubs, in dressing rooms, that the fans don't see.
No. Again, for us, we'll take it every minute of the week. It's something that we love to see, is the behind the scenes, and I can't wait for Wakefield's behind the scenes story. That's going to be a very interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, listen, thanks very much. David,
Pleasure.
Neil, thanks very much. It's been a thrill tonight. And everyone who's been watching, please subscribe, share the word, and we will talk to you again next week.